What is up, everyone, and welcome to the first video for the 2025 NHL Draft. Will be the top 16 for the preseason rankings before we start kicking off the season for the juniors. And here we go. With the first overall pick, I don't think there's any questions right now. It's James Hagen's just been so dominant for the U18s and for the NTDP. Just so good. He's going to Boston College next year. He's going to thrive being with Leonard and Perreault, and he should really dominate and hopefully be high up in the Hobey Baker conversation and really be just an incredible player for Boston College, and I think he'll be unstoppable. But as of now, I really think he's the consensus right now, but I feel like there's a couple guys that could really creep up and be right on his tail throughout the whole process, and he's got to show a lot more to be considered the second or the first overall pick. But I really think the second overall pick right now for me is Matthew Schaefer. And I think people might think this is a bit high, but there's just so much to like with Matthew Schaefer. He's such a smooth skater, so fast. One of the fastest skaters I've ever seen at the defensive position. But I mean, he's very consistent with his international play. With the Hlinka Gretzky was incredible for them. The U18s, he was the best defenseman on that team, and he's one of the youngest players in that team as well. Just really incredible what he was able to do just at such a young age, and was very productive. Didn't have the greatest offensive season last year for Erie. I think 17 points in 50 games that was. But Erie wasn't a really good team last year, and I really think they're going to step it. I really think they're going to step it up this year and really turn it around. He's currently has mono right now, but he's going to thrive in a couple weeks when he's back and become the player that he is. And at the third pick, this is Porter Martone. I think there's so much to love with Porter, and I really think that he's just a really good all-around winger, just powerful, but has some insane skill set. The hands are some of the best I've ever seen. The shot, he can truly rip a puck, and the IQ and the playmaking is really solid too. I mean, he can thrive in pretty much any role. I mean, he can be a skill guy, he can be a powerful guy, but where he's going to thrive the most is being that true dangler playmaker that he's really going to thrive in. But he can also rip the puck, and that's something that not a lot of other wingers can really do, is have that elite skill set, but also be able to rip the puck. So I think he's a real threat at the position. With the fourth overall pick, I actually have I have Michael Misa, and people are continuing to be lower and lower on him just because he didn't live up to the insane hype that he had with his exceptional status, but being granted for Saginaw. But I really think that being the first pick on Saginaw, there's just such amount of hype that but being the first overall pick, there was just so much hype going into him, and he just really hasn't lived up to it completely, but he's still been amazing. I mean, he's still been this incredible playmaker, and I really think this year is really going to be the spot where he breaks 100. He hits 100 points. He's going to be insane in the OHL, and he's really going to thrive there, and people are really going to start warming up to him. I mean, Saganow's one of the best teams in the league, and he's one of their better players. I mean, the production keeps going up, and I really think that he's just in the perfect role to succeed. I mean, I love the speed that he has. The hands are insane. His shot's pretty good too, but the IQ and the playmaking, along with that elite skating, is really what pushes him over the top. And he has all the tools to be a great player, and he's just got to show it this year. That's all it comes down to. And the number 5 player, I think, is Anton Frindell. People might have him a little bit higher than this, but I think that there's just a lot to like. I mean, he's a good all-around center, and he's currently injured right now, but I don't think that's going to lower him that much for me. But he's just going to thrive in any role, really, in the NHL. I feel like a second, third, even first-line center is really where he's going to thrive. But, I mean, he's really skilled, but and has a really solid shot with some good hands. But his defensive capabilities is really where he thrives. Is being that two-way center, but yeah, his defensive capabilities are insane. His playmaking, his IQ, his shot, his hands, they're all really good. Everything's just really solid, and I really think he's just a really consistent player, and scouts are going to love what he brings to the table. And the 6th ranked prospect is going to be Ivan Ryabkin. He's an interesting one for me. I really love him, the way he plays. With the the skill set is unreal. It was like watching Demidov last year all over again. I don't think he's quite the player that Demidov is, but I think the skill set is right there. And the playmaking is ridiculous. The shot is insane. But something that is really interesting about him is Demidov and those guys like Michkov. They were wingers. He's a complete center. Like, he has some great defensive capabilities, has some elite speed, moves very quickly with that elite playmaking, and his shot's wicked too. I mean, he's such a fun player to watch. The only thing that I have with him is his compete. It's a little bit iffy sometimes, so that's kind of what holds me back on him. But right now, he's such a good player for Dynamo in the MHL. But he's been a really fun player to watch. I'm excited to see what he can succeed throughout the season. 7th ranked prospect is Roger McQueen. I like Roger a lot. I think he's very solid in a bunch of different ways. I mean, physically, his speed, for a 6'5", 220 center who has some pretty good defensive capabilities, who moves very quickly, has a wicked shot and some pretty sick hands, honestly, is really incredible. And I think he's a real unicorn for sure. I mean, there's not a lot of I think he's the only player, in my opinion, who can shoot the puck like him, who handle the puck, move like a guy like with that size, and he's so fun to watch, and it's really special the way he plays. The only thing that holds me back a little bit, why he's not in the 5-4 range, is the discipline, but the consistency he struggled with last year for Brandon. He just had some lows with his consistency, but his discipline in the U18s and with his maturity, he was getting a lot of penalties, he was getting suspended, and that's just something that's really going to hold him back, being a bigger guy. And I think that I saw those myself, and I was kind of questioning things with him. The skill set, all the tools are there. He just got to put them together. The 8th best player, in my opinion, right now is Logan Hensler. And his case is the same exact as Zeev Buiams. He was a pretty good defenseman for the U18s last year. He wasn't in an amazing role for how good he is. He was like the 3rd best defenseman on the team, probably, in terms of playing time. Yeah. And this is something that Zeev was too. With the U18s, he was really good. He provides a ton of speed, a ton of his elite IQ and playmaking ability, while having some really good defensive responsibilities. And with that elite skating, the shot's pretty solid, but that IQ is insane. The reason that I think he reminds me a lot of Zeev Buiam is because he's going to Wisconsin next year, and Zeev was kind of at Denver, and I feel like they're similar programs with being just elite at the college level, but and I think he'll be the number 1 defenseman right away for them. Same with how Zeev was, but that's not the same reason that I think he's a lot like Zeev. I think that they're both similar because I think they weren't in that big of a role when they were on the U18s, but they were still very good players. Because Cole Hudson was the quarterback of the first power play, and I'm not denying it. I think Cole Hudson's amazing, but I think that Zeev and Logan Hensler didn't get a chance to thrive in that first power play, and I really think that that's the reason that people aren't considering him as a top 5, top 3 pick, is because he wasn't given that chance in that role. So why people haven't really seen what he can bring, and I think both of those players, and we'll see. Look at Zeev now. People think he's the best defenseman in that draft, and they just really have to see more of him. And I really love his game, and he can really thrive if he just gets put in a perfect role in Wisconsin. I really think he'll be like Zeev as a breakout freshman, over a point per game. I can really see it. With the 9th pick, I have to go fishing a little bit for this guy. I don't know why he's ranked low, but it's Jacob Wozniak. This guy is just so fun to watch. I mean, the reason that I think he's just so fun to watch is just because if you just watch the little things that he does, I mean, the physical traits is where it starts off for me. I love his physicality and compete. It's ridiculous, but the reason that I love him so much is because his ability to just get into open areas and just put pucks in the back of the net. He's just a true goal scorer, and it's really incredible how he was as a bumper last year for the U20 in Sweden, and he's just very good at just like moving his feet, getting into those open areas, and putting the puck under the bar. I mean, that's just what he does. Wicked shot, pretty good hands, and pretty solid IQ with good physical traits. I really think he's a really good player and will climb up the rankings, maybe even in the top 5 throughout this whole year. I'm a really big fan of Jacob Wozniak. And with that being said, with the 10th pick, I have Malcolm Spence out of the Erie Otters. Another Erie Otter player, him and Matthew Schaefer, of course. But Malcolm Spence reminds me a lot of Tij Genla. Maybe doesn't have that elite skill set as Tij, but they just find open areas to just be consistent dogs on the ice. And Malcolm Spence, I think, has a really underrated goal scoring ability. Maybe not as great as TJ Genla's, but I feel like the compete is very similar to TJ Genla, and then their just ability to get into open areas and put pucks in is really where they're similar. Just the goal scoring ability I can really see is very similar for them, and I really think Malcolm Spence is going to break out and be this true elite goal scorer in the OHL. The consistency is great from him. The physical traits are unreal. There's the motor that he provides is really good, and he's just a really good all-around winger with some goal-scoring upside that's just going to be a really good, depth, consistent player on your third, second line at the next level. And the 11th player is Caleb Denoyer. This guy, I've always been a big fan of him out of the QMJHL, but he's just a very good all-around center with some great IQ and a really good motor and some good defensive capabilities. When Roger McQueen got suspended, this guy thrived in that first-line center role, just with McKenna and forget who else was on that line. I think it was Martone. But he was so dominant, just being just that incredible IQ centerman with his passes, his skating, his defensive capabilities, just finding a way to just be so consistent on the ice at the U18s at just such a young age. And it was just really incredible what he was able to do. At the Hlinka Gretzky, he was a very solid player as well. And I'm a really big fan of him, and he's just someone that's just really special in my opinion to just be a really good, talented playmaker, and I really am a big fan of his game. With the 12th pick, I have Sasha Bominian, and I'm a big fan of Bominian. He didn't have the reason that people are a little bit lower on him is because of his 0 points at the Hlinka Gretzky, but I really don't think that matters too much. I mean, he wasn't in an amazing role there, but I really love his speed. I really love his decision making and his shot I feel like he can be a great quarterback on the power play. I mean, I hope he gets a really good role at Boston University, even though Willander and Hudson are active. But I really think Bominian should really get a chance on that first power play. I mean, Willander's there and Hudson are there, but I really think Bominian's just so solid at moving the puck, moving his feet. He's a really good shot, and he's just fine. His anticipation is just so well in that blue line. And he's really just a responsible offensive defenseman that's really fun to watch, and I really am a big fan of his game. The 13th pick, I have... Who do I got? This is where it gets a little interesting. Just trying to see if there's any... Oh, here it is. Finally. Charlie Trethewey. Another defenseman. And Trethewey is really interesting because he's just someone that's just so consistent on D. I mean, it reminds me a lot of, I think, EJ Emery, but more offensive potential. Has some really solid defensive capabilities with some solid speed, and his gap control is great. I mean, the physicality is great. Just the overall defensive positioning is just great. But the thing that just makes him a little more fun is just because his ability in the offensive zone on the blue line, with his speed and moving his feet well. I mean, he's so good in that offensive zone, and he has some really solid hands and a wicked shot. And reminds me a lot about EJ Emery, but just a more offensive potential. And I really think there's a lot to love with Charlie Trethewey. And then the 14th is Cole Reshny of the Victoria Royals. I watched this guy last year a lot in the WHL. I really was a big fan of his game, but what I really love from him is just that amazing goal scoring ability. Again, Just has some pretty solid speed. Not the greatest. Could be better, but it's still pretty good. But he's got some really good physical capabilities with that high motor and just being consistent with his compete and his goal scoring. But another guy just finds a way to just always get open, and he's got a really nice shot. Not necessarily like a cannon shot, but it's just so incredibly accurate with how he plays. And yeah, he's just so consistent, and I really am a big fan of him. The 15th ranked player is Victor Eklund. William Eklund's brother, of course. A little bit undersized, but I feel like there's a lot to love there. I think he's like 5'10-ish, but Victor Eklund is just such a fun player to watch just because that elite playmaking is just insane what he's able to do in the offensive zone when the puck's on his stick. But it's just his speed's so good. His just overall just offensive minded game is just so good. His shot is pretty solid, but that playmaking is so fun to watch with him just being able to just handle it and making plays out of nothing. It's ridiculous, but his defensive responsibilities are really insane, and he moves so quickly. He's a really fun player to watch, and I'm really excited what he's going to be able to bring this year. And with the 16th pick, I have I'm going to do some honorable mentions at the end. But who do I have? I'll do William Moore. I'm a really big fan of William Moore. I think he's just a really good workhorse forward with an insane shot, some really good hands, and he's going to thrive at the U18s. I've always been a big fan of him ever since he's been to the from the U17s. I just really love the way the guy plays. I mean, he's so fast, so physically gifted. He's true powerful. He reminds me a lot of Quentin Byfield in some ways. He doesn't have that elite like frame that Quentin Byfield has, but he's got that speed. He's got those hands. He's got the shot. Like, he just has insane offensive production for being a power forward, and he's so fun to watch with just how good he is as being a power forward while also having some just insane skill set. Having an insane skill set. It's just really fun to watch. But that's gonna do it for this video as the first mock draft for the 2025 NHL draft. But some honorable mentions that I have are Luka. I cannot pronounce his last name. The guy on Czechia, undersized, 5'10", 154. You gotta bulk up. He's a really good offensive defenseman, and I watched him a ton at the U18s, and he was really solid. But just he's going to drop because of his size, but a really special player. Another one, Adam Banak, 5'7", 160. That's the problem with this. He is by far, in my opinion, the most talented player in this draft. He is so physical. He's so skilled. It's unreal. He's so quick. He's just his stick handling, dangling ability is off the charts. One of the best I've ever seen. But 5'7", scouts are going to be concerned by that. That just cannot be taken this high in the draft unless he has an unforgettable season for the Youngstown Phantoms. But just it's so hard to pick someone that small. But he's so physically gifted, or not physically gifted. He's so gifted offensively. Another one that I really like is Radim Mrka. Really love him as a player. I think he's bigger than that. He's like 6'6", 195. But he is so good. His skating is so good. His shot's so good. His hands are so good. He's just such a good, he reminds me of Jesse Pulkkinen in a couple ways, just because of being that crazy offensive defenseman, not such a big frame. But he does have some issues under pressure, which is why he can't get into the top 16 with his natural just IQ, which holds him back. Another player, Emil Guti, going to be out of the QMJHL. Just another interesting player, a really skilled, silky player that can probably rise into the top 16. Another one, Justin Carbonneau, QMJHL, another player. Just he has a cannon of a shot, but the consistency, and he's got to show me more to crack into the top 16. There's another guy. LJ Mooney, another one. 5'6", 145. Too small, but he's insanely skilled. Another guy like Adam Benak. Blake Fiddler, another one. I thought he was going to crack into my top 16. 6'4", 210. A really smooth skating defenseman with some offensive potential who's really physical. Love his game. Could have snuck into the top 16 for me, but I just need to see more with him in the OHL before I do that, or the WHL before I do that. But I really like his game. He can be a solid all-around defenseman at the next level. Cole McKinney, also, he's got to show me more with his consistency in the NTDP, and then he can be in this conversation. Another guy, Jordan Gavin, just got to be more consistent as a smaller player. Jackson Smith, a really big defenseman that just needs, all he needs is just another one, just be more consistent for I know Tri-City's not great, but he has a lot of potential there with his just overall game. I really like the playmaking. I really like the skating and the defensive capabilities. He's solid for sure. And then the last one that I have for honorable mentions is, I won't buy him, is Dakota Riel Mullen. And I really love him. He's going to the University of Michigan this year. 6 foot, 180. Such a good offensive defenseman. Has some really solid traits. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays so smart. He's so skilled, and I really think he's going to thrive for Michigan this year. Going to be an interesting project for sure. Really like him. Another guy, Jacob. I don't know how I skimmed over this guy, but Jake O'Brien, another guy I really like. Not the biggest guy in the world as well, but just a really good all-around center that could maybe creep up and for this year. Really am a big fan of him. And that's going to do it for this video. And there's going to be more draft hockey content in the future coming up, but I just wanted to get a preseason video before the season starts. Peace.